the basic framework of the migrant education program in Minnesota and what some federal reporting requirements might be and so on. We have a small group today, so I think you can probably ask questions. Would that be okay, Noemi and
Absolutely.
Cris, as you go along?
Yeah.
But again, thank you for joining us. We're really grateful. And if you could turn on your cameras so that we can see you, we'd appreciate that. But we also understand if you are not able to do that at this time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cris and Noemi.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Deb. We appreciate this opportunity to be here with you. Yes, since we are a small group, let's totally make this interactive and informal. As the title of the presentation was, ready or not, here they come. And as school administrators, I should start off saying, my name is Noemi Treviño, and I work at the Minnesota Department of Education. I've been there for 23 years, and prior to that, I worked in St. Paul Public Schools. And I'd like, Cris, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Cris Young, and I'm the Deputy Director of Migrant Education Services for Tri-Valley Opportunity Council. And I've worked with the migrant program for over 20 years in different capacities. And I also in the past have been a teacher, K through 6, ESL K through 12, and have been involved in administration.
So one of the 10 commitments to equity is really prioritizing equity. And we as administrators, we know that the Department of Ed, if you've attended any of our trainings, we definitely are focusing on saying follow the money. And we want to improve conditions for student learning, as well as giving students options, especially our migratory agricultural farm workers. Our goal for today is for you to learn about the migrant education program and its purposes. And we also want you to leave knowing that there's a ton of resources available to you so that you can help highly mobile migratory students and their families. And also be cognizant that we are required to collect data that we are required to report to the federal government. And these are minimum data elements, but we need your help in accomplishing that. So we're going to jump right in and give you a big overview of what the migrant education program is.
There is a federally funded program for the children of migratory agricultural workers and migratory fishers. It's known as the Title I Part C Migrant Education Program and exists in virtually every state in the United States. The program is based on the fact that these children are mobile. They move from one district, from one state to another because of their parent or guardian's agricultural or fishing work. This program is not to be confused with the issue of unaccompanied children who are unaccompanied minors coming from Central America. The needs of these children are very significant. They're some of the most disadvantaged children in the United States because of their poverty and because of their movement. They often suffer multiple interruptions every year in their education, leaving early before the end of the year is completed and coming back late and having to make up that work during the year. What the migrant education program does is to knit a fabric nationally so that these children can get supplemental instruction during the summer and during the school year to make up for the disadvantages of that mobility. These children should be getting Title I Part A services because of their low income, as well as Title I Part C migrant education services. It's a program that has many models of excellence in the summer as well as during the school year, and you find more and more children graduating from high school as a result of both the program's success and the hard work that these kids put into the program.
So we're going to start off here with the legal references to the migrant education program, which I'm sure you are very, very familiar with. We have the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which was authorized under ESSA, and it gives us, it authorizes the state to establish or improve directly or through local operating agencies programs for education for migratory children. The Code of Federal Regulations is an annual codification of general and permanent rules published in the Federal Registrar by the executive department and agencies at the federal government. And it provides applicable regulations related to the migrant education program. And we have guidance, or the non-regulatory guidance, which is one of many resources for states as well as local operating agencies to use as we determine how best to meet the needs of migratory children in a manner that's consistent with the requirements that are established in the ESCEA and the Migrant Education Program regulations. So back in 1966, when there was the Harvest of Shame, Congress enacted the Migrant Education Program, which is state administered program. And the whole goal is to reduce the unique educational challenges that children face, because of their high mobility. We know in rural Minnesota, they may experience cultural and or language barriers. They may feel social and community isolation depending on how many are in the area. And they also experience health-related problems such as being over or under immunized, which is an issue. And many come from low income households, which is very challenging when you're trying to raise a family on limited income. So again, the Migrant Education Program is 100% federally funded. These funds are supplemental and may not supplant local, state, or other federal funds. So I always like to describe it as the cherry on top. Title III might be sprinkles, and Title II, professional development, might be the frosting, and the cake is Title I, and the mix is, gen ed monies. But the whole purpose of migrant ed is to ensure that migratory children have access to the same services as all other children have. So the purpose of the Migrant Ed program is to address the unique educational needs of migratory children, to help in assisting overcome the educational disruptions. When you're moving and on the go, there might be a lesson that you might have missed from your home state to where the moving state. So we want to make sure that there's continuity by not penalizing the students for the disparities among different states' educational systems and grading practices and stuff. We also want to ensure that students receive the full and appropriate opportunities to meet the same goals for graduating. So again, that is part of your helping us in ensuring that the purpose of this program is implemented. So you might be asking, who is a migratory child? Oh, no, this is Cris. Go ahead, Cris.
That's okay. So you might be asking, who is a migratory child? So a migratory child is a child or youth that's 21 or younger, and they have not graduated or obtained a GED, and they've moved across district lines within 3 years or 36 months, either as the agricultural worker or with or to join an agricultural worker. So the migratory child could have been born in Minnesota, and his family could have moved from Plainview to Breckenridge to work picking rock, and that could be a qualifying move. So don't get confused with migrant and immigrant or refugee asylee. For our purposes, for Title I Part C, a migratory child is 21 or younger, has not graduated or obtained a GED, and has moved across district lines within 3 years to work in agriculture as the agricultural worker, or they could have moved with an agricultural worker or to join an agricultural worker. So, like I said, they could have moved, they could have been in Minnesota their whole life and just made that qualifying move, and they could still be eligible for our program. So, in the past 3 years, has your family lived in another school district? So, that's one indicator that you could have in your paperwork. What we're wondering is if your school has any of the indicators in your paperwork. So in your enrollment process or your intake process. And if not, we recommend putting these indicators or similar indicators in your paperwork. And once you have these in there, if someone answers yes, there should also be a process. So we've worked with districts that have these indicators in their enrollment paperwork, but then they don't have a process for what happens next. So we recommend making sure the indicators are in your paperwork and having a process in place. In a little while, we'll talk about the migrant liaison position, but what we recommend is that each district have a person designated as the migrant liaison. And then if someone indicates yes to these questions, this information should go to that person, and then that migrant liaison can proceed with the rest of the process. And we'll talk about that in just a couple seconds here. One thing I did also want to add, in the slide before this, I talked about the child moving with the agricultural worker or as the agricultural worker. And I did want to just mention that the agricultural worker is someone who works in seasonal or temporary work and has lived in another district in the past 3 years. So seasonal or temporary work, on this slide, it shows some of the activities. We have a ton of activities that could qualify. So these are just examples, but like sorting potatoes, working with corn, peas, picking rocks, working on the dairy farms, um, in the forestry industry. So we do have a qualifying list, a list for the qualifying activities on our webpage, and we can put that link in the chat if you are interested in looking at more of those qualifying activities. This is the survey that I was talking about earlier. So there's a parent employment survey, and it's available in English and Spanish on our webpage. So if you are interested in that, feel free to take it off our webpage and use it. You can adjust it however you would like. If you want to put your school logo on there, you can. If you just want to take the questions off of it and put it in a lot of you probably have online enrollment. You can put it in your paperwork that way. But there should be some sort of process established. And then once whoever you have designated to take that information, if the family answers yes, once that person gets that information, they should we recommend having them contact the family and letting them know that Tri-Valley will be contacting them to determine if they're eligible for additional support services, if that's okay with them. And once the family agrees, the migrant liaison can fill out this recruitment request. We have the QR code for that there. We also have it on our webpage. And then our Tri-Valley regional recruiters, who are trained and certified to determine eligibility, they will contact the family and set up an interview time with them. and determine if they're eligible for the additional services. And they're very flexible. They can do that over the phone. They can meet with the families at their house. They can meet at the school if that's okay with you. Wherever the family is most comfortable, they will go ahead and do that.
So you might be asking yourself, well, why do they come to Minnesota? Do they like our cold weather in the month of March or April here, as we saw the flurries? Well, the reality is people move because of economic need. You know, there is a shortage of labor in the ag industry. We have an aging farmer population, and it is a very highly skilled job that needs to be filled by that we're having a difficulty filling with local labor. Also, I think many of the kids may feel safer in Minnesota schools, and that's perception on our behalf, but we'd like to think that we have safe schools where kids can learn and be free to expand their experiences. We have Minnesota businesses that actively recruit in other parts of the country for these laborers. And also, you know, there's a long history of agricultural farm workers that come to Minnesota. So there is a long history of generations of families that have come to work for the same farmer. Again, you know, we had a lot in the Red River Valley, in the Minnesota River Valley, along I-90, like Cris is mentioning. If you go to the next slide, you know, they work in multiple qualifying seasonal and temporary jobs, like picking rocks, sorting through corn and pea pack, the meat and poultry processing industry. We have many of them here in Minnesota, in the dairy industry. So it is very broad how a student might be eligible for this program. The vast majority of the migratory students come to Minnesota from Texas. However, we are seeing an influx of different mobility patterns from east to west as well, or from Florida and Chicago or Illinois and California. So, however, the vast majority do come from Texas, and we work hard at establishing relationships with counselors to ensure that these students are placed in the right class and earn credit for that.
Our migratory families tend to leave the state of Minnesota in October or November and return in April or May. So that's most of our families, but we do have families that move within Minnesota throughout the whole year, as you can see from our qualifying arrival date graph. The majority of our families make qualifying moves in May, June, and July. So Noemi talked a little bit about this earlier, but I'm just going to dive in a little bit deeper. Migratory students often encounter difficulties due to language differences and unfamiliar cultural norms. Adapting to a new language and cultural context can be daunting for our students. Frequent moves can lead to feelings of isolation, especially when students are separated from their families or their familiar support networks. And students may struggle with forming connections and feeling a sense of belonging when they're adjusting to new environments. Um, Accumulating sufficient credits for graduation becomes complex when students switch schools frequently, and it can delay their process toward earning a diploma, especially our secondary students. Frequent relocations disrupt the continuity in education. Students face the challenge of adjusting to new curriculum, new teaching styles, and just general expectations. Migratory students often miss critical instructional periods due to their mobility, and those gaps can impact their overall learning trajectory. The transient nature of their lives can result in chronic absenteeism, affecting their attendance and engagement in school. And it's essential for educators, schools, and communities to recognize these obstacles and provide targeted support to migratory students, ensuring that they have equitable opportunities to thrive academically and socially. We do offer some professional development for school districts. So if your school district would like us to present to your staff, contact us. We have on our webpage, we have a link for professional development. It's called training request form. You can request training and then we will get back to you and talk about what would work for you and your staff. And that is free of charge.
So one of the populations that we're also targeting are our out-of-school youth, what we consider out-of-school youth. Typically, they're like 16 to 21-year-olds that, you know, may have, because of their mobility, have a lot of holes in their transcripts. They haven't graduated. Many could be considered emancipated youth, that they travel on their own or with extended relatives or on their own, you know. They often are young men, I would say, you know, the 18 to 21-year-olds who come to work. And, you know, they may be 1 or 2 credits shy of obtaining high school diploma. And sometimes they kind of work under the radar. They don't want to be identified. They don't want they want to come and earn a living. And so this is where we need your help as educators, school administrators, when there are out of school youth, that we can help bring them back into perhaps getting GED or ESL classes or GED classes, something, you know, that would help them get over that finish line of earning a high school diploma. So yes, let's move forward.
Sure. So are there students in Minnesota who do not enroll in school? What do you guys think? So they come to Minnesota, migratory students, they come to Minnesota, they're here in September, but they don't enroll in school. This year we found, oh,
I was gonna say, you
someone?
could just type in your answer in the chat. This is not trying to be
Yeah.
interactive.
Yeah. Sorry. So this year, especially, we found a ton of students. I say a ton, but it seems like a ton, but it's probably a handful of students that are here in Minnesota during the school year, but are not enrolling in school. And we've talked to the parents, we talked to the families to understand why, the why behind it. And what we've found out was that sometimes parents don't understand the enrollment process or the truancy laws. Sometimes students don't feel welcome or they feel bullied. Sometimes there's hesitancy to enroll students due to their status. Sometimes they're only in Minnesota for just a short period of time, a couple of weeks, and then they're moving, so they don't feel like it's worth it to enroll. Students feel that the work they do in Minnesota schools will not count in their home-based school, so why enroll? And sometimes students need to just stay home and help with the younger siblings so the families can work. And then sometimes there are trauma and or mental health issues where the students just cannot or do not want to go to school. And when we come across a situation like this, we let the migrant liaison at the school know that the student is in the area. And then we also encourage the family to enroll their child in school, and we offer to help them with that process.
I want to say this is super, super important because we don't know what kids are coming with, especially that last bullet where it talks about the trauma that they've experienced. As I had said, the vast majority of our students come from Texas, South Texas, the Valley, you know, and there was a shooting in Uvalde, 2 years ago. And I mean, there is some residual impact of that experience with this group of students that come to Minnesota. And so a lot of the reasons that they had mentioned are very real. And you guys are dealing with this on a daily basis, trying to make sure that your buildings are safe yet welcoming. you know, how do you do that in a very honoring the individual and the students? So just be aware, it's a lot of questions out there.
Right. So the Minnesota Department of Education partners with Tri-Valley Opportunity Council Migrant Education Services to determine eligibility and provide year-round recruitment. We also manage the data systems and data for each migratory student in the state. We provide instructional and support services for students ages 0 to 21, and we provide and or offer referrals to resources to help support families and districts and charter school staff. So you may experience someone contacting your school saying, hey, they're eligible migratory students in the area. These are the things that we would like you to do. This is the information we need from you. And if they're from Tri-Valley, that's okay. It's okay to give give them that information. Like I said, the Minnesota Department of Education partners with us to do these things to make sure that those federal reporting requirements are met, all of the minimum data elements are collected, and making sure that our migratory students' information is getting inputted into the correct database.
And we also take privacy, student data privacy, very, very seriously. So we often get calls at the Department of Ed going, hey, who are these Tri-Valley folks? Are they legit? And then we have to reassure administrators that yes. And so this logo, this combined logo, is trying to help, you know, and the word of mouth from one administrator to the other when you're going to these conferences will help us disseminate that yes, we have a statewide effort in providing resources to migratory families and students as well as to schools because of the requirements of having to collect minimum data elements.
Yeah, thank you, Noemi. So in Minnesota, we have about over 1,500 eligible migratory students that were identified last year. There are over 100 Minnesota school districts, almost 200 schools that have at least one eligible migratory student enrolled during the year. And we never know where migratory students are going to end up. There's always different districts that we're working with. So for example, today our instructional and support services manager had a family that's up in Roseau um, that's eligible for the migrant education program, and we've never worked with that school before. So it just, wherever our families can find qualifying work, that's where they're going. So even if you don't have any migratory families right now, you never know. They may end up in your school district when you least expect it. And in 2023, the Minnesota Department of Education funded 6 migrant education programs, and collectively, they served over 500 students.
So as you can see on this map, that's a large geographic area that these recruiters are responsible for. So that's where the cooperation and collaboration is critical, and having a community action organization such as Tri-Valley, who also serves migrant and seasonal Head Start programs, who's well recognized in that Head Start community, helps bridge that gap and shows that there is a relationship between the department and programs across the state.
Yes, thank you for adding that, Noemi. We do have, like Noemi said, that map is, it's a huge state, and we have 4 recruiters, as you could see on the map before. Previously. So there are 4 certified regional recruiters that determine if students are eligible for the migrant education program. And eligibility for the program is very complex. So even though I explained it very simply, like that information is just the it's just that's the word I was looking for. The surface. So these recruiters know eligibility inside and out, and there are so many different situations that come to them. So they're very well trained to determine eligibility. They often also provide support services and referrals. And we maintain strong partnerships with other agencies. So that way that we can provide other things too, like educational supplies, non-perishable food items, and other necessities that the families need. In addition, we obtain transcripts for students. So that's a requirement that we need to obtain transcripts for the secondary students. We help with enrollment if sometimes families, when they come to Minnesota, they're uncertain of how to enroll, where to enroll, what to do to make sure their students get into school. So we help them with enrollment. We also have a lending library. It's a resource center that we provide free resources for any school staff that works with at least one migratory student. And you can use the resources with your whole class, even if you only have one migratory student in your class. We ship it to you for free, and then we send a shipping label with that, those resources, and you can ship it back to us for free in 5 weeks. We do have a catalog online on our website, and again, I'll put our website information in the chat, so you have that. We have a mentoring program that our instructional services and support manager is starting for secondary age students that will meet virtually, and then they will also meet in person a couple times a year. We provide referrals and service information. Advocacy is a huge service that we provide. And then we also uh, do all of the data management for the migrant education program. And the next slide, I'm going to show you an example. There's 2 slides that have examples of services.
Oh, we're not hearing it.
Oh no, okay. Well, I can just tell you while the video goes.
I can if you want, Chris.
Oh, sure. That would be great.
So if you figure out the volume stuff in the meantime, so some of these families arrive, and as we're all aware, we've heard on the news, the influx of migrants at the border. And I think that's something that often gets confused in people's mind about who's considered a migrant or what is a migrant. Because there are migrants that are coming to the US, there are immigrants, they may be refugees, they may be seeking asylum, asylees. So there's so many different categories of a potential migrant that comes to the US. But what we're focusing on is the migrant agricultural workers. So it's very specific to mobility and agriculture. We're still not hearing anything, Chris.
Yep. Nope. I
Oh.
will. I'm just going to read. I'll just say it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So some families had just arrived in Minnesota and did not have housing or work. And they saw our migrant education program flyer in a Mexican store and decided to fill out the recruitment request. Our recruiter contacted the families, offered them our services, and referred them to a farm that they knew was hiring. The farmer offered them work and housing, and then the recruiter provided them with some food and school supplies, and then showed them the way to a nearby food shelf to receive free food and clothing. She helped the family enroll the students in school and contacted Tri-Valley Head Start for additional educational services. And she was able to share other resources with them as well. And the families felt extremely grateful for the migrant education program. So that's one example of services. And then the next example, oops, sorry about that. We'll see if you can hear this one. Nope. Okay.
If you try to pop it out of the slide deck, it might be able to hear the sound. It might be pulling sound from your browser window versus the slide deck. I don't know if that's an option.
Okay. It's okay. I can just go through it. Thank you, though. So this one, the Instructional and Support Services Manager contacted the migrant liaison to notify the school that the child has a previous diagnosis of ADHD from when he was in Nicaragua. And then the regional recruiter helped the mom get a doctor's appointment set up here for this. And since it typically takes 6 weeks of documentation to begin the process of the IEP, the Instruction and Support Services Manager advocated that the school started observing the student and making documentation so that the student could receive the support that he needed as fast as possible. And so now the student has an IEP and additional supports at school to help him be successful. So it was a combination of all three, the regional recruiter, the school, and then the instructional and support services manager to help that student be successful in school. So we mentioned in that first example that the recruiter helped the student enroll in Tri-Valley Migrant Seasonal Head Start. So within Tri-Valley, we have multiple departments, and the department that works with Title I-C is the Migrant Education Services Department. So that's the department that I work in. And we collaborate with the Tri-Valley Migrant and Seasonal Head Start Department. And through MSHS, Migrant Seasonal Head Start, services are available for eligible migratory students 0 to 5-year-olds. And Tri-Valley holds the only Migrant Seasonal Head Start Center grant in the state. And that's funded through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They're expected to have about 12 sites this summer with Migrant Seasonal Head Start programs. So depending on some of the kiddos that enroll in your schools, they may have younger siblings that could be eligible for these programs as well. And then we also, I talked about this a little bit before, but we also provide so MDE and the Migrant Education Program has summer migrant education program sites. It usually provides services between June and August, and these pictures are all from some of our sites this past summer. So if you have students, migratory students that maybe need some additional support in the summer, and we haven't contacted them yet, make sure to get a hold of us and we will try to set them up with a summer program site. I mentioned the library, the lending library, MERC, and the free resources that are available. So any teacher or staff or even counseling staff, social worker that has at least one migratory student is eligible. These are some of our resources. Like I said, we have over 11,000 different resources. We are trying to get some additional technological resources as well. So the picture here is a translator that we have available. We've found social emotional learning kits are a huge hit this year. We have hands-on learning kits, Lego kits, there's interactive math and reading kits, educational games, a ton of books at varied levels, and bilingual books. We also offer professional development opportunities, like I had mentioned. So if you want specific professional development about the migrant program, you can contact us and we can set that up with you. Otherwise, we do offer Making Connections. It's a 2-hour virtual workshop or training that we offer. And then we do have 2 sessions that are 6 hours that are in person that go more in depth. And you can register either on our webpage or by the QR code there.
And so the Minnesota Department of Education, we provide assistance and resources to ensure the effective administration of this program in order for us to adhere to the federal requirements. And this is where we need you. I mean, we can't do it alone. This is us in partnership with local school districts to do what we're asking you on the next slide.
Yeah, so we do have the Minnesota Department of Education. I often say we, and when typically I'm referring to all of us in the migrant education program. So the Minnesota Department of Education has the migrant secure reports that your district has access to. So if you would like to access those reports, you can first go to the Minnesota Department of Education, then go to the data center, and you have to scroll down towards the bottom of the page and then click on Migrant Identified Student Report. That should bring up a list of all of the migratory students that we have determined eligible in your district. That does not mean, like, if you have a student that you think could be eligible, that does not mean that they aren't eligible if they're not on that report. It could be that we just haven't interviewed them yet. So maybe if that's the case, then fill out a recruitment request, and then we can determine if, yeah, we have interviewed them, but they're not eligible, or no, we haven't interviewed them. Let's get that set up and we can determine if they are eligible. And your site verification coordinator can give you pre-authorization for that. We also, MDE also added the, in MDE-org, a migrant contact list. And that list, we're asking each district to list one person that can be considered the migrant liaison. So when we have students that we determine are eligible for the migrant education program, we need to know who to contact at the district. And so our data coordinators will contact the person that's on in this list, the migrant liaison listed, and let them know that, hey, we have this student that we determined they're eligible for the migrant education program and the support services. And then these are the things that I'll send you, the things that I need, and they'll give them lots of information about the program if they haven't had a student before. So please have someone listed. The migrant liaison doesn't need to have all of the answers or have access to everything, but they need to know who to go to at your district. So let's say our data coordinator is needing a transcript for a student in your district that's in grade 10. The migrant liaison should be able to contact whoever it is that has that information and get that information for our data coordinator and send it to them. So the migrant liaison is our go-to person at your district. We've been talking an awful lot about the migrant liaison. Our recommendations for some of the possible duties of the migrant liaison include sending recruitment requests to Tri-Valley, advocating for migratory students, like Noemi had said, especially with the recruitment requests. Our 4 recruiters cannot be everywhere all of the time. So as you come across students who could possibly be eligible, they have those indicators. It's really important for you to get that information to us as quickly as possible because sometimes they move fast. They could be here in one district 1 week and then 2 weeks later they move to another district. So the sooner that we can determine if they're eligible, the sooner we can help support them in their educational journeys. So advocating, assisting in providing grades and transcripts to Tri-Valley, providing enrollment withdrawal dates, providing move notices in M6. M6 is a national database. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second here. And ensuring that they have access to anything they're eligible for. So in Minnesota, this isn't a huge thing right now, but the free categorical eligibility for breakfast and lunch. If they're eligible for Head Start, early Head Start, migrant seasonal Head Start, making sure that they have access to those. And many of our students are also qualified or eligible for the McKinney-Vento Act. So just making sure that um, they have access to any of those support services that they are qualified for. I mentioned M6. M6 is a national database of migrant student information, and it allows states to share educational information. As students are moving around from district to district or state to state, um, as long as we get the information and can put it into the system in a timely manner, that school, that educational transcript or that educational information will follow them from state to state, and they can get placed properly in classes that they need. If they have an IEP, that the school will know that they need additional support there. If they're EL, the school will know. Um, but it's up to us to make sure that we are getting the information from you, and your school is providing that information in a timely manner, and we're getting it entered into the national database. And we have a database in Minnesota that's called MIS 2000. We enter it into that system, and then M6 receives nightly uploads of the data stored in MIS 2000. In your district, you can determine who you want to have access to M6. Typically, it's your migrant liaison, counselors, administrators. And if they would like access to M6, you can contact us at Tri-Valley. Linda Fournier is the state administrator that can set you up as a user and get you going. She can get you trained in M6 and show you how to use it. And we just need an application for that. There's some cybersecurity training, and then some behavioral, some rules that you need to sign off on that you'll follow, because it is a secure database and there's a lot of private information that we need to keep private and secure. Also in M6, before I get into the MSIF, there is assessment information, including the access test information, if they've taken it in Minnesota, and MCA assessment information, as well as assessment information from other states. So when you're looking at placement for students in different areas, that's a great tool to use. The migrant student information form is the form that we use to report the student information. So our data coordinators will send to your school, the migrant liaison, the reporting form, and even if there's only one eligible migratory student, we'll send that form, and then that's where we'll collect the minimum data elements. And this is an example of what it looks like. Of course, this is not real information, it's all made up. And the information that we're collecting on this form is federally required. We're required to collect it. And there are rules about the length of time that we need to collect it in. So for example, we need to collect grades within 10 days after the end of a reporting period, a term. There are workshops that we offer, so participants will be supported to complete the MSIF, including all of the required minimum data elements for migratory students. It's once a month. The start time is 3 o'clock, end time is 3:30. Even if you don't have any questions, it's great for you to listen into these workshops. Things may come up that you wish you would have known. And it is also a place for you to be able to ask questions as they come up as well. All right, so we went through that pretty fast, but what questions do you have for us? I know that was a lot of information. And what is one takeaway that you have from what you learned today? And who is one person that you can tell about the migrant education program? Because this is not a secret program. We want to spread the word about the migrant education program. We want the world to know. So if you wouldn't mind, you could do your part and tell at least one person about the migrant education program. If you don't know how to explain it to them, have them come to one of our sessions or contact us and we can tell them about it ourselves. I'll be quiet now and let you answer. So what questions do you have from us? One takeaway and who can you tell?
Well, I think an important piece that you emphasized, Christina and Noemi, was that, the migrants want to be here and they have needs and that you can certainly assist our school districts in fulfilling. So I really appreciate all the free offers that you made of helping our school districts. And I know personally that if we reach out to you and offer another webinar, you will do that. And I know that you will help school districts through it. So I will be certainly telling this message as I meet with other regions across the state of what a great resource both of you are. And I really thank you so much for all of the offers that you made today. And I know that these children enrich our state along with their families and are very deserving of our support.
Sure. Thank you, Deb. We're going to move forward then, just because I want you to leave with resources. We have these resources. We've reviewed them. They're live links. They're current. They're good stuff that you can use for your own PD. We have 2 complete slides with that. We are interested in your feedback, Cindy, even if it's just you. We would like to hear what do you need more of or less of as we continue to raise awareness across the state. And we have our contact information on the next slide, where if you have a 1-800 number, doesn't cost you anything. We have a Facebook presence, Tri-Valley. Please reach out. The next slide shows us a visual of the Tri-Valley staff that are responsible, that we partner with to ensure that we do this. Again, we thank you so much for allowing us to do this. And we want to be of service. And we want to thank you for all the work that you do in making sure that kids are in a safe learning environment in your school. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and I just want to echo what Noemi said. We thank you for your time. And if you ever have any questions, we are here to support you. We want to make this process as easy as possible. So we will do everything that we can to help support you in helping our migratory students, our shared migratory students.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to our participants. Thank you very much.